This is wonderful. I'm glad that so many folks showed up with an interest. Maybe some parents, maybe some coaches, maybe some trainers, maybe just interested medical type students. I want to share with you some basic information to help you better understand the concept of sports vision. I think we'll have a lot of fun this evening. I'm going to talk at you for 20 or 30 minutes. Slideshow talks get kind of boring after about 10 minutes, right? So, but I'm going to try to make it to 20 or 30. And then I want to do some demonstrations. We've got some gear set up around the room that I want to have you guys try, just to give you a chance to experience some of our specialized testing and training procedures that we use for the athletes. Okay, that's the basic idea. That's me, Rainey. I'm sort of embarrassed to admit it, but I've started tweeting. So I'm shooting for 1 million followers in 6 weeks. So tell all your friends. I think I've got 9 followers right now, so we're almost in double figures, so it's looking good. So that's my handle there, and I keep trying to get hold of Fitzgerald and all those people, and they blow me up. So I'm working on that, and that's one way to hopefully get the word out on it. We do have a number of events that the Sports Vision program is involved in this year. We've got a couple of spring training events at some of the baseball fields in the area, if you like baseball. Finally, the National Hockey League is back in town, right? Coyotes aren't playing too well. They did win yesterday, a big game. And we have a hockey event coming up March the 16th. It'll actually be at jobbing.com arena before a game with the Columbus Crew. No, whatever they're called. And we'll have a booth set up with some of these same things to show, again, to how sports vision applies to the sport of hockey. So, just a quick plug for the series. I don't know how many of you were here last week. Don Curtis gave an outstanding talk. He's a podiatrist, an outstanding talk on the treatment and prevention of foot and lower leg injuries. It was fascinating. I showed us some of the X-rays and CTs and MRIs and what happened, and defined some terms like bursitis and shin splints and foot things. What were some of those things you told me? Yeah, things you hear about, and we understood, oh, that's not a good thing. And then how do you fix that? Get a better pair of shoes, adjust your running schedule, don't overdo it. So it's a very interesting talk. You're stuck with me today for Sports Vision, which hopefully will be somewhat useful for you. And then next Tuesday, same place, same time, that February 5th, Dr. Angela Breitmeyer is going to come in and talk about sports psychology, which I think is going to be an incredibly fascinating topic. I find psychology fascinating anyway when you combine it with sports. It's just incredible. And I think she's got some really wonderful things to say. So I encourage you to think about that talk. I think you get a lot out of it. If you were an athlete, or if you're working with an athlete, or in some capacity, that might help give you some insight into that psychological component of that athlete. So let's talk about the eyes. You've probably heard this before, the eyes lead the body. And that's just a common statement. Optometrists say it all the time, the eyes lead the body, or the eyes lead, the body follows, etc., etc. That statement actually came from this chap, Blanton Collier. Collier wrote an article in 1979 in one of our optometry journals called The Eyes Lead the Body. And I have a copy of it somewhere. It's a very interesting article that he wrote. Blanton Collier was not an optometrist. Does anybody know who Blanton Collier is? Anybody know? Someone's got it.
Football coach?
Football coach. Did you say that?
Yeah. Rob?
Yeah. Good. Give him the prize. If I had one, I'd give him the prize. Sorry. Blanton Collier was a famous football coach in the 50s and 60s. Coached the Cleveland Browns' last championship game in 1964. So he knew his stuff. I became a Cleveland Browns and Indians fan in 1967, so I missed that by a couple of years, and I've been suffering ever since. But he was a great coach, and the way he coached was to make the players aware that your eyes are going to give you a lot of information. Follow your eyes. And he was obviously very successful in doing that. You all know who these people are, right? The middle, that's Coach Collier right there in the middle. Who's that? Jim Brown, yes, the greatest running back in the NFL ever in the history of the NFL.
Really?
Yeah.
Barry Sanders.
And this, of course, is Gib Shannon. Gib was the TV announcer for Channel 5 in Cleveland, where I listened to him all the time, broadcasting the Browns games. This picture was taken probably back in '63 or '64 with those guys. So, wearing the Browns jersey. Anybody know who number 19 for the Browns was?
Right, so I was Bernie.
Bernie Kosar. Bernie Kosar. Right. Born in Ohio. I'm gonna bring prizes next time. Candies. All right, sports vision. What do sports vision optometrists do? What are the components of sports vision? We have a sports vision service over at the Eye Institute at Midwestern, and these are some of the things that we're involved in. Obviously, prevention and management of sports eye injuries. If somebody gets hit in the eye, take a look, see what kind of damage there is. Can they see? Do they need surgery? Do antibiotics help? Stitches? So we play a role in that. Assessment, remediation of vision problems. If they're having trouble with double vision or focusing their eyes, things like that, we can correct that with lenses and so forth. We provide specialized contact lens services. Some contact lenses may not be useful for the rugged game of football because once a guy gets clobbered, the contact lenses pop out and he's in bad shape. So you may have to design a contact lens that will fit better for that person and stay in the eye. There are also tinted contact lenses that some players are starting to enjoy, like on a bright sunny day. And you put in a light tinted contact lens that they wear for the ball game, that seems to help as well. Obviously, here and here, if they want to wear glasses for their sport, we can develop performance-based protective ophthalmic eyewear services. And there are various brands that are stronger and sturdier than these dress frames. I was watching this past weekend. But there are athletes that are wearing special design glasses. A lot of football players now have a little plastic window, and that helps a little bit to keep those big, strong fingers from poking them in the eye. They've also added that little tint in there so you can't see where they're looking, which is pretty clever, but that's kind of a protective device. If anybody knows Larry Fitzgerald, tell him that he needs to get that across his helmet. He doesn't get that. So we're disappointed in him. Sports vision optometrists also assess specific sports-related vision skills, which we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to show you some of those things today. Assess these specific sports-related visual skills, and we do enhancement training of those same skills. Again, athletes typically have normal or above normal visual skills, and the idea of enhancement therapy is to make them better. The athlete wants that little bit of an edge that will help them, get 6 points on his batting average or drop the ERA by a couple of points. Those kinds of things we're looking for, and this might be the way they'll get that edge. And then ideally, I enjoy doing this, talking with the athletes and with the coaches and the trainers and the teams and the parents to get feedback from them. What do you think the problems might be, vision-wise or otherwise? And working together like that, we can help develop a specific training program for those specific needs. I don't teach athletes how to hit a baseball or throw a baseball. I don't teach golfers how to putt. That's not what I do. what I do is try to train and improve those visual skills that are important with hitting a ball or putting. That's what we do. So the three things we sort of, these sort of are three of our standard laws that we adhere to. First of all, I think I mentioned this already, athletes generally have better visual skills than non-athletes. If you take 1,000 pro ball players that played on a regular basis, and then 1,000 people that didn't play organized sports, did these tests, on average, the athletes would do better in those visual skills than the non-athletes. We also know that these visual skills can be trained and improved. Even if they have normal or supernormal skills, we can make them better by doing specific vision therapy, vision training activities. And then the ultimate goal is, if you improve the visual skills, the idea is that hopefully it will lead to better, improved athletic performance. And we're just now starting to collect data that supports this third sentence down there. They can do better visual skills. What does it mean for sports? Well, yeah, actually it does make them a better athlete. So enhancement, again, these athletes typically have normal or above normal visual skills, so we do what's called enhancement training, improvement training, to improve existing normal or supernormal vision skills. We don't just say, well, you're normal, everything looks good, you're fine. We try to make it a little bit better. And also, just to distinguish, we call it sports vision training, not therapy. First of all, we're not treating any deficient or defective skills. They've already got normal skills or better than normal, so it really isn't therapy. It is more training to improve those skills. Second, and most importantly, if you told an athlete, okay, we're going to put you either in training or therapy, which one are they going to pick? Okay? Athletes want to be in training. When they're in therapy, that means something totally different, and so we never use that term in front of an athlete. It's always training. So sports vision training, not therapy. We do vision therapy sometimes on kids with vision problems that need to be developed and improved because they're not quite as good as they could be. But in these cases, with these folks, we're doing training of the visual system. That's a picture of AutoZone Park in Memphis, Tennessee. This is the front gate, and there's the stadium. AutoZone Park is the home of the Memphis Redbirds. They're a AAA farm team of the St. Louis Cardinals. I took this picture over here off the roof of the famous Peabody Hotel. Have you heard of the Peabody Hotel in Memphis? They've got the famous Peabody Ducks that march in every morning at 11 o'clock and run around, and then at 5 o'clock they march back out and they go up the elevator to their penthouse apartment. And they do this every day. There's a duck master who wears tails and a cap, and he picks a volunteer duck master to help him. It's quite a spectacle. So anyway, I spent many a summer afternoon there watching my Redbirds, and many of them now are playing actually for the Cardinals. Things you have to think about when it comes to sports vision or the sport. All sports are different. All sports have different visual demands. For example, is it a static sport or is it a always moving kind of a sport? That way the different visual demands occur there. So things like golf and archery and target shooting, shooting static targets are static sort of sports. Dynamic sports include baseball, basketball, NASCAR. I'm a big NASCAR fan, which you'll see in a minute. Hockey, skeet and trap, racket sports. So you look at the different sports and categorize them this way, and your evaluation and training will then depend in large part on this characteristic. We also look at the target size and speed. So if you compare a sharply hit small hockey puck, which goes pretty fast, compared to a slow dribble of a large soccer ball, very different visual skills are needed. Man, those Coyotes last night, how do they do that? You can't even see the puck, and they're just right there on top of it, and they know where it's going to go. Those guys are good. Size and speed affect visual discrimination, and then reaction time. You got a puck coming at you at, what, 120 miles an hour, however fast those things go, and you got to react to it in fractions of a second. So the target size and speed is also very important. Figure, ground, color, texture, think of golf. That's one place where this comes into play. Wimbledon used to use white tennis balls. Remember that back before 1986? And the problem with white tennis balls were, as they were getting hit, they picked up grass stains, right? Because Wimbledon's a grass court. And so what they told us was that the players can't see it very well, so they had trouble. But the reality was, people watching on TV couldn't see the balls very well, and that was the problem. So they switched over to these vibrant yellow balls in 1986, so that the audience can see the balls better, and presumably the tennis players can as well. But that's one example of that a low contrast situation may have an effect on game. There are many filters available that people can use. For example, shooter's glasses. When you're hunting or doing shooting, trap, and skeet, yellow filters tend to do a good job of filtering out some of the blue lights and increasing the contrast. Things seem brighter and the contrast is better. You can see your target more distinctly. So yellow is a very popular color for shooter's glasses. Visual reaction time. If you look at a Major League Baseball batter, if the pitcher throws a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to that batter, it takes about 400 milliseconds, so less than half a second, for that ball when it leaves the pitcher's hand to get to the batter. If the batter decides to swing, it takes him 150 milliseconds to complete the swing, to actually make the swing. That only leaves him a quarter of a second, 250 milliseconds, to make that decision of should I swing or should I not. So that's pretty quick. 1/4 of a second, that decision has to be made. Those guys are pretty good too. So that's something to be aware of. If a person's having trouble with their visual reaction time, there are things we can do sports vision training wise to try to help them with that anticipation and make that decision a little bit more quickly. Tennis serves are on the order of 120 plus miles an hour. Hockey penalty shots, I think they go at least the speed of sound, if not speed of light. Right? Those things go fast. So I think there's at least one goalie in this room. I think he was going to come visit us. We talked earlier about how do you're sitting there, you got bodies falling in front of you, and you got a guy out there, center ice, knock a ball at 120 miles an hour towards you. What do you do? If you catch it, it's going to be deflected. Is somebody else going to hit it? A lot of stuff going on at these very, very high speeds. Well, this is my cool picture. What time is it? 11? I had some time for demonstrations. This is the NASCAR race back in November. Some of you have already seen this. I was walking around the pits. I always get a pit pass and just kind of walk around and look cool, like I know people down there. Hey, how you doing, Dale? Hey, what's up, Gordon? So I was walking around the pits, and I saw these uniformed folks. I was in the Air Force for a while, so I'm a sucker for a person in uniform. So I walked up to him and said, can I get your picture? And this guy said, you want to be in the picture? This guy with all the gold and the, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 stripes. He said, you want to be in the picture? I said, no, well, only if you are. So he called over this young enlisted guy and gave him my camera and said, here, take a picture of us. So that's the picture. That's me, if you didn't know. Funny headphones and ears there. And I didn't know who any of these good people were. I just thought it was cool. Here's, Marines, Air Force, Army, me in this picture on Veterans Day. So anyway, this fellow right here, does anybody know who that is? That is Sergeant Major Brian Nataglia, who is the senior enlisted advisor for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Is that cool? And that's me. That's me. And he touched my camera and gave it to somebody. And that's Sergeant Taglia. So anyway, I like NASCAR races. So that was very fun. I really got it back. That's one of my favorite pictures of all time. So I friended him on Facebook. He doesn't know me from anybody else, but he's my friend. Okay, let's talk about the examination procedures, and then we'll go into some of the pictures of some of the gear that we use. When you go get your eyes checked for glasses or contacts or glaucoma check or a red eye or whatever, there's a pretty standard protocol that we follow. We measure visual acuity, put the chart on the wall, and you read the letters. The chart just sits, like that chart there, just sits on the wall, you read the letters, and we see how well you're seeing. We check your refractive status, which basically is your glasses and contact lens prescription. We check color vision, we check depth perception up close. You look in the little book and can you see any depth to that? Are your two eyes working together? We check that. Focusing, eye focusing, changing focus from far away to up close. How close can you focus? Those kinds of things. Are your eyes pointing in the right direction? Is one turning in or turning out? We check all that as well. Eye movements, you follow the light and you just do this kind of movement here. And so you watch your eye movements that way. And we also do a very extensive eye health evaluation. Check the pressure in your eyes, do a microscopic evaluation of the front of your eye. You put in eye drops to dilate your pupil to get a very good careful look inside of the eye, back at the optic nerve, peripheral retina, things like that, to try to find problems that may not have caused symptoms yet, but we can catch them early and take care of them. This is a pretty thorough exam. We actually do a little more thorough exams over at our clinic, but this is basically what a standard evaluation encompasses. These tests are also obviously very important to the athlete, how well they see, the color vision, focusing problems, eye movements, that all applies to the athlete as well. However, we've taken it one step further and we developed a second sports vision evaluation, looking at visual skills that typically aren't evaluated in a regular eye exam. And some of the skills are dynamic visual acuity. We'll talk about this a little more in a second. You're reading the eye chart in the clinic. It's just it's a TV screen or taped on the wall or whatever, but it's just sitting there and you're calling letters across. And that's a good way to check vision. But remember, the athlete's world is always in motion. Fitzgerald's always fighting defenders, and the baseball's coming at me, and the runners are running around, and I've got to look at the stitches on the ball as the ball is rotating. Can I see which way it's rotating? And a very dynamic process. So we do dynamic visual acuity testing. And you'll have a chance to try that here in a few minutes. It's just to show you one way that we here at the school evaluate this dynamic visual acuity. Eye dominance. How many folks in here are right-handed? Most of them. Anybody left-handed? No. Okay. So I forgot to do something. I have somewhere those little yellow pieces with X's drawn on them. Are they up there somewhere? Is there tape to those?
They're kind of sticky on
Okay, yeah. Would you bring those? Thanks. I forgot about those. Thanks, Jeff. Let's see if this works. I guess those two will work. Okay, so what I want you to do, we're going to do a real simple eye dominance test. You may have done this before with an eye doctor, but put your hands together like this. It makes a little bit of like a hole in your hands. And hold it straight out. And put it down in your lap first. And pick one of those X's or one of the letters on the screen or something, the clock over there. And starting down here, raise up your hands and look at that X. And now close one eye or the other and see which eye is actually seeing the X. Does that make sense? Let's do it again. Same thing. Arms down here. Bring them up slow. And see which eye is seeing the X. We'll do the same result that time? Okay. So how many folks was the right eye. Anybody left eye? Oh, good. There are a few left eyes. Okay. Eye dominance. This is an area that interests me a lot. We're trying to get some projects off the ground to look at this. Let me talk about a couple of things related to eye dominance. Now that you've done it, maybe it will make some sense to you. My first example is to think of somebody who's a bow hunter or an archer shooting at targets far away, or pistols or rifle target shooting. Okay? If you're right-handed and right eye dominant, you're going to hold your rifle and you're going to sight with which eye? Right eye. Okay? Right-handed, right eye dominant, I'm sighting with my right eye. I'm going to pull the trigger with my right hand. That kind of makes sense, right? That dominant hand, dominant eye, that sounds good. Archery, I think, is the same thing. I haven't done this for years, but I consulted some of the experts. When you're drawing your bow, right-handed, you're going to draw it back to your right eye. If you have a sight on your bow, you're going to sight through that sight with your right eye, right? So that works pretty well. That sort of makes sense. Now, let's take a ball player, a baseball player, who's right eye dominant and right-handed batting. Okay, so I'm the ball player, pitcher's down there, and I've got my bat, I'm waiting for the pitch. I'm right eye dominant, but my left eye is closer to the pitcher. My right eye is kind of hiding back here somewhere. So does that make that person a good batter? Well, there may be some problems with that. What's one way I can address that? Well, I can...
Bat left hand.
Open stance. I can step in the bucket. I can do this. And then I get my... Now, is this a good way to stand to bat a ball? Some people do this. They just get good at it. This probably isn't the best way to swing a bat. Opening a stance generally is not a good idea. I think coaches in here would agree with that. So, but if you did open your stance, you can go right eye out there, and that would solve that problem. It might screw up your batting average, though. So being right-handed and right eye dominant may not be desirable in a baseball player. What about a baseball player who's right-handed and left eye dominant? Okay, that sounds like that's going to work a lot better. Because I'm looking at the pitcher, my dominant eye is facing the pitcher, I got the bat in my right hand, boom, home run. I don't think we've ever collected any data. We've got scads of volunteers willing to help me out with this, but wouldn't it be neat to look at Major League ball players and get data on eye dominance and handedness and batting averages and see if that is the case? Because intuitively you say, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Well, now we need to get some data to say that, yeah, people that are right hand dominant, you know, those folks do better if they switch hit or go to the left side. They do better. Maybe that's part of the reason why. Okay, so the idea was just to show you how we do this and where it's relevant in sports vision. So something to think about. We test contrast sensitivity. How well can you see light colors on darker backgrounds and evaluate that. Distance depth perception. The depth perception tests we do in clinic where all those books are close. We have a depth perception test we're going to show you over there. It actually is about 10 feet away. We can do even further away than that, which simulates sports when you've got the world out there, not right here where you're reading the book. Distance depth perception. Visual motor reaction time. We'll talk a little bit about that. Eye-hand coordination. We'll talk about that a little bit. Eye-foot coordination, balancing, being a goalie, being in basketball, you're trying to switch feet and stay balanced. Peripheral awareness. I want to show you some peripheral awareness stuff this evening too. What this means is if you have an eye exam, you all probably had that exam where you look at that big bowl and they shine lights in that bowl, and if you see a light, you push a button, and if you don't see it, you don't push a button. It takes forever. They're checking your peripheral vision or your visual field. And if it's normal, that's great. There are people with normal visual fields that may have difficulty reacting to stimuli in certain parts of the peripheral vision. So we've got gear in our clinic that we test how quickly they can react to a stimulus over here, or over here, or over here. They can see it. The visual field's fine, but how good is their reaction time? So that's what peripheral awareness is. Visual anticipation and visualization. You know, it has been said that some guy who wears number 11 for the Cardinals and plays wide receiver has said that when he's downfield, 70 yards downfield, and the quarterback, or whoever throws the ball that day, it may not be a quarterback, when Fitz sees the quarterback throw the ball, he knows where that ball is going to go the moment it leaves the quarterback's hands. He's visualizing in his mind where that ball is going to go. So he's going to go get there where the ball is going to land, fight with those defenders, but he knows it way ahead of time where that ball is going to be because he's visualizing all that. And we'll talk about some visualizing skills and procedures we can do that are pretty simple that help in that regard. I've got a modest sports card collection. I don't know how many cards I even have. I started buying cards back in 1969, and I found some that are even older than that. Yeah. So I've got Mickey Mantle, 1963, I think. 1967 Mickey Mantle. That's Roger Maris, Willie Mays, a couple of Pete Roses over there. This is an interesting card. This is Roberto Clemente's 1973 card. Clemente was killed New Year's Eve 1972. We never played 1973 baseball, but yet here's his 1973 card that I found in my collection. This card I actually saw at a card store here on sale for $100 and some. I don't think mine's in that good a condition, but it's just neat to have them. There's Mark McGuire's rookie card. Tug McGraw, you know Tug McGraw? You know who his kid is? Tim McGraw. Tim McGraw is Tug McGraw's son. Tug passed away a few years ago, but Tim is still living large, so Tug and Tim McGraw. I've got a few football players down here, Dick Buckus, Joe Namath, I won't talk about him, Bart Starr, John Unitas. So anyway, that's part of my collection, and I like to pull them out every once in a while and see what I have, and you know, I still buy